Hello, welcome again for today's lesson. I want to believe that there at home you're okay and that you are doing well. So today we are going to discuss the endocrine system. I want to believe by the end of the lesson you'll have learned a few things. Welcome. Now, remember as we began coordination in animals, we said that there are two systems involved to bring about coordination, and that is the first system being the nervous system, and we went ahead discussing on the various components of the nervous system. That is to remind you, the central nervous system, which comprises of the brain and the spinal cord, and then the peripheral nervous system, in which case we said it has two components, that is the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. Now, the other system that brings about coordination in animal is the endocrine system. And the endocrine system is mainly involved in secretion of substances that we refer to as hormones. So, before we proceed, I have a few lesson objectives that I want you to pay attention to, that by the end of this lesson, you will be expected to answer the following. Number one, you explain the term hormone. Remember, this is a term that we've seen right from Form 1, Form 3, and now we are mentioning it in coordination in Form 4. Number two, differentiate between an endocrine gland and an exocrine gland. And if by extension you would be expected to give examples for each. Then number three, state the properties of hormones. And then the last objective is to describe the hormonal feedback mechanism involving one of the hormone, which is thyroxine. So remember, in Form 3, we said that hormones are chemical substances that are inorganic in nature, and some of them or most of them are protein in nature, and once are produced, they control and regulate various activities of certain cells or organs that leads to development of the organism. Now, as we've said that they are protein in nature, remember that there are some factors that are likely to denature them. For example, temperature and extreme of pHs. That is very low pH or very high pH. So these chemical substances are involved in major growth processes in the body. Now, for today, we are going to focus more in terms of coordination. How do they coordinate various activities that occurs or various processes that occurs in the cell? Now, let's just take a few minutes to remember about the properties of hormones. One of the properties is that hormones are always effective in low concentration. So they are produced in little quantities, and at that point they are very effective. So meaning that if they are produced in extreme volume, they are likely to bring about effects which we shall discuss later as we look at individual hormones. For example, oversecretion and undersecretion, their respective impacts. And most of those impacts will be negative to the life of the organism. Then number two, property is that they are inorganic soluble molecules. They are organic soluble molecules, and therefore they can be transported in the blood. Remember, there are two systems that materials are transported in the body, either via special tubes that we refer to as the ducts, or sometimes some of them, mainly those that are soluble, are transported through a blood stream. Remember the functions, the roles of plasma. Number 3, they exert their effect at sites different from point of production. Those sites are the ones that we refer to as the target cells or target tissues or even target organs. So once a hormone is produced, it is transported via bloodstream to regions where it is going to exert or cause its effect. And those sites are the ones that we refer to as the target sites or target cells or even tissues. The last property is that each hormone has a specific target cell, tissue or organ that responds to it, having particular type of receptor cells that fit into it. Aside or apart from adrenaline, which has multiple target cells, the other hormones, all of them have specific target cells. For example, the target cells for insulin are the liver cells, and you know well that once insulin is produced, it stimulates the conversion of glucose to glycogen for purposes of storage. So giving an example of insulin, insulin is a hormone that is produced by the pancreas, but its respective active sites where it performs its role are the liver cells. Now those are the main properties, that is the 4 of them. Please take note and go through each of them, mastering each of them for your knowledge. Now, the endocrine system is made up of structures or organs that we refer to as a gland. And therefore, the glands that constitute the endocrine systems are referred to as the endocrine glands. And these glands are ductless. They don't have ducts. They don't have specific tubes or structures that are involved in transportation of the secretions, which in this case are the hormones. So they are ductless. Whereas the exocrine, the word exo means external. External. They have ducts. Therefore, once they are secreted, they are channeled into special tubes. They are channeled into special tubes, and those tubes deliver the secretions to areas where they exert their effect, which we remember we call those areas or parts or sites as target sites. And therefore, as we said, hormones are transported via bloodstream. Now, examples of the endocrine glands will be illustrated in this diagram here. These are the major endocrine glands. Remember, the hypothalamus is one of them, especially it produces a hormone that we call the releasing hormone, RH. And apart from it acting as a gland, it also regulates homeostatic processes in the body. Remember, homeostatic processes are the self-made mechanisms that ensures that conditions in our body remain constant. There is no extreme. For example, temperature is not so high, not so low, to ensure that the cells work at their best optimum temperature. Then below the hypothalamus, there is a pituitary gland. And remember, as we said, this is a master gland. Actually, it produces about 8 hormones, as we shall see in our next lesson. Then we have a small gland that is located beneath the pituitary, and this is the pineal. Pineal gland is the one that produces melatonin, for example. And remember, melatonin is the hormone that regulates the wake and sleep the wake and sleep, and other behavioral changes that are observed in mammals, for example, hibernation, aestivation, and migration, that matter. Then along on the neck region, the thyroid gland, this is the one that produces thyroxine hormone. And then parathyroid. Parathyroid is a pair of two glands just beneath the thyroid gland. And it is the one that produces parathyroid. We shall look at the roles of parathyroid. Then the thymus, and then above the kidney, the left and the right kidney, we have two sets of adrenal glands, and these are the glands that produces hormones, for example, adrenaline and adrenal corticosteroids. Therefore, in the adrenal, we are going to look at two categories of hormones: the steroids and the adrenalines. Then below the pancreas, we have the pancreas. Pancreas also secretes hormones. Remember, it has specific cells that we call the islets of Langerhans. Don't forget about insulin and glucagon that are secreted by the beta cells and the alpha cells. So beta cells secretes insulin, alpha cells secretes glucagon, and remember, those two hormones are involved in regulation of blood sugar. Then there are sections here that are not really endocrine glands all through the life, but at sexual maturity. That is the ovary and the testes, together with the uterus. The ovary, the uterus for the female, and then the testes for the male. Remember, I've said that this becomes gland especially at puberty. That's when they start secreting hormones that regulate various processes, including the menstrual cycle, and then expression of secondary sexual characteristics, either in females or the males. So these are the major glands that we are going to discuss in the next lesson. Now let's